I'm Nick Armstrong, and I'm the geek in chief of WTF Marketing, the lead organizer of Fort Collins Startup Week.
I'm Franklin Taggart, and I'm with the Larimer Small Business Development Center and the Loveland Business Development Center. We are putting together this really quick webinar for people who are learning how to teach online for the first time. Nick, why don't you tell them a little bit about your experience, and then I'll tell a little bit about mine.
Sure. Over the last couple of years, I've been teaching on Skillshare, short classes on different topics in business and marketing, branding, and so on. And so I've gained a lot of experience in both video production and how to do online classes and the do's and the don'ts of getting new students. So if you've never taught before in a crazy situation like we're in right now, we're going to walk you through it. And Franklin has some really good advice, and I have some good advice. Hopefully, we'll walk away learning a lot more about this. Give you some tools that you can equip yourself with so you can start your first class maybe next week.
Yeah, for sure. My experience has been, I started teaching guitar lessons online when Skype was first introduced to the world. That was well over 10 years ago at this point, but I've also done a lot of pre-recorded courses and a lot of live workshops that I've ended up turning into recorded courses as well over a variety of platforms. So we're going to talk about all of those different equipment things that you're going to need and all of the different considerations that you're going to need to make to get your first course up online easily and quickly. I'd like to start with just some basic equipment, Nick.
Please.
Can you tell me, like, are you using just your webcam for recording, or are you using a DSLR?
Well, I have for the sessions that I'm recording right now. I have a HD webcam in my computer that records reasonably good video. It's not as good as my DSLR, which I do have, and I have that on standby. I also have an external microphone that is really important to my setup. It's actually a Blue Yeti. You don't have to go that fancy. I've seen folks use a Snowball or other things like that. Sometimes the external webcams also have decent audio microphones in them, as long as you're talking right at them. But I prefer an external condenser style microphone just because it makes me sound that much more present. And Franklin, we've heard probably, over and over again in video that audio is the most important part of video. Is that true in your experience as well?
You just take a look at me and you'll know that it's true, Nick. Audio for me is absolutely more important than video. And with video, I'm usually forced to do something with my hair. With audio, I just let it fly. And if it sounds good, I'm in good shape. I also really encourage people, if they can afford it, to get an external microphone. It's, if you're recording videos with your phone, there are some really good options, like Smart Lav from Rode Mics is a really great option for recording with your phone if you'd like to do that. But speaking of which, one of the things that I think people need to understand is that good cameras are right in your pocket, and you don't have to go out and invest a lot of money in a video camera or a webcam or anything like that. If you've got a recently made smartphone, like in the last 3 or 4 years, you've got a great camera in your pocket. And a lot of folks are using those to make online courses, and they're doing a great job with it. So the main thing to remember is that you just want it to look and sound as good as you can. The other equipment that I usually recommend that people look into is a tripod of some kind, whether it's a desktop tripod or one of the small photography tripods that you can set your camera on so that your hands can be free, especially if you're doing a demo of any kind. That just gives you a lot more flexibility about where you can place your camera. So that's the only other thing that I look at. The other thing that I think is important to consider is the software that you use. For online teaching, I think it's important to use screen recording software that includes video editing. And there are a lot of options for this. If you're a Mac person, good old QuickTime still does the job for both screen recording and editing. You also can use iMovie for editing. On the PC, we don't have as many built-in options as a Mac user does, but there are some really good inexpensive video suites that you can use. The one that I started out on was called Curate Video Studio. That included screen capture, it included editing, It included all the bells and whistles that I needed, like, you know, text on the screen and stuff like that. And I was able to buy that for less than $100.
If you're doing video or drawing tutorials, a really good one to use is ScreenFlow, especially if you're on the Mac and have a tablet or other things like that. You can isolate the cursor and highlight the different things that you're doing with the tools. So it does give you a little bit more flexibility, but the tools that you use are pretty highly dependent on what type of class and what you're teaching.
ScreenFlow is an excellent program, and sadly, it's Mac only. And for us PC users, a similar program that's a little bit more expensive is Camtasia. But there's also a web-based service called Loom that I am recommending to folks who are just starting out. Loom does include screen recording functionality, and it includes video editing. It also will host your videos for you. The main thing when you're making your videos, I think, is to just keep them short. Um, I usually tell people to not make really long videos because they take longer to process, they're harder to edit, and they take longer to render. So the main thing with your videos is that you just want them to sound good, look good, and stay, you know, like in the 4 to 6 minute realm. I think is the max time that I usually tell people is optimal.
That's pretty accurate to my experience as well. On Skillshare, they recommend less than 10 minutes per lesson, and you can have a class that has multiple lessons. But in my experience, editing each segment is really difficult unless you have some really clear delineation between one point that you're trying to make and another point that you're trying to make. It also helps to understand that when you're breaking things up like that, your computer or whatever software you're using might be able to handle the video processing a little bit better, and it makes your flow that much more smooth. The the other aspect of the hardware that I wanted to mention too is the playback. When you are playing this back, you can listen to it on your phone, you can watch it on your phone and have a completely different experience than somebody like Franklin who's wearing his headphones today. And if you're hearing more and your sound is more isolated using headphones or other things like that, ear pods, whatever else, if your audience is going to be doing that same thing, then they're going to hear a lot more of the, like, your clothing moving around, your rustling, and some of the annoyances that sort of get forgiven on iPhone speakers.
Yeah, one of the other things that people very often do, they'll be too far away from their microphone, and then the microphone won't be loud enough, or it'll pick up too much of the room echo, and it just won't sound great. So make sure also that your microphone is placed close to where you are, so that you get the best sound quality out of it. The only other equipment considerations that I have for people is to think about the device that you use to record with. Most of what we can do, I know people who have recorded entire courses on a smartphone. The technology is there to both record your screen and to share slideshows like PowerPoint presentations all on your phone. And I know folks who have completely done courses on just a phone. So it's not important for you to have all the bells and whistles. A lot of this can be done on a device that you already have with you. Um, the next area I'd like to talk about is choosing your topic. And I think that this is a really important area for a person who's doing their first course. And the person I'm going to pick on right now is Nick, because, like, let's say that Nick wanted to do Nick's School of Marketing. Well, Nick has been in marketing for years and years and years, and his knowledge base in marketing is huge and broad. So if Nick wanted to do a school on marketing, that would be a really hard place to start, because it's just too big, too broad. You can't narrow it down. It's hard to market something of that scale, and you probably wouldn't be able to put a fair price on it to save your life. So one of the things that I always tell people is that you need to think about what your specialties are in the area that you are working in. For instance, if you're an artist, if you've got a real knack for one particular type of art, like I know a lot of plein air painters around town, they know their craft so well. And what I tell them is that your specialty areas are the things that you really need to highlight in a course, because those are the things that are going to be most easily marketed. So, like, the example that I used in the handouts that you guys are going to be able to download is that if I were teaching guitar lessons, I wouldn't want to do Franklin's School of Guitar. That's too broad of a topic. And it's not all that interesting if you put it out there. But if I narrow it down a little bit and say, I'm going to do a series of lessons on jazz guitar, particularly beginning jazz guitar, and then I narrow it down even more than that, and I look at the 4 specialty areas that I have, which would be things like, I know all the chord fingerings.
Yeah, chord
And I know all
progressions.
of the, yeah, I know all of the different scales, and I know I know how to teach melody and phrasing and things like that. So the thing that I could do is I can just break it down into those smaller categories. And the smaller that I get, the easier it is to create a course for that. So it's easy for me to put a course together on the major jazz chord fingerings. That would be a nice course that would have about maybe 6 to 10 lessons in it. It'd be about probably an hour long, and it would include like demonstration videos and PDF with chord diagrams in it. It would be very easy to put together, and it'd be very easy to publish. So the smaller your topic idea is, and the more specialized it is, the easier it's going to be to produce and to market. So as you're choosing your topic, get narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow. Get deep into your specialty, because that's the thing that makes you a unique person in the marketplace.
And I would say, even with heady conceptual topics like marketing, you can create a project-based learning system. So you could say, I'm going to teach you how to create a press release. I'm going to teach you how to name a new product. I'm going to teach you how to negotiate a contract. And that even negotiating a contract is too broad. When I actually taught a negotiation class, I had to narrow it down to, how do you negotiate a price for a service? How do you negotiate a price for a product on buying in bulk? So there's a lot of different complexities that can be accounted for in a class. But if you think in a project-based learning methodology, what do you want the student to be able to do by the end of the class? And more importantly, if you tell them that in the course description, then you're going to have a really clear value proposition for why somebody should take the class, which is an important marketing consideration, especially when it comes down to pricing and availability of attention.
I agree 100%. In fact, one of the handouts in the packet that people can download is a course planner, and that's kind of where we'll go next. Once you've chosen your topic, it's really important for you to create a clear outline for your course. And the course planner that I'm going to include in this is a very simple one. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it just helps you to organize your content so that you're not just shooting from the hip and making a lot of mistakes. At the top of the list, I think it's important to choose a really good title for your course. You don't want it to just be a ho-hum boring title. You want it to be something that actually appeals to the need and desire of the person who you want to take the course. So create a good title for it. And the other thing that I would look at is, I always encourage people to have one learning goal for the course. Like, as an example, if I do the guitar course and I want people to be able to play their major chords in any position on the neck and with any string as the root, I just want them to be comfortable with that ability. And that's what this lesson is going to accomplish for them if they follow through and take the whole lesson. So do set a learning goal for each course. As you're doing your outline, I think it's really important for you to break your videos into individual steps. So do one video for each individual step in your process. This makes it easy for your person who's taking the course to find the material that they want to work on. And it's easy for them to then, if they want to put it on repeat and go through it over and over and over again, making each individual step available is a really important way to do that. So I encourage people to break it out into individual steps and do one piece of content for each step. So like in my chord thing, I'm going to do one video for the major chord fingering that is rooted on the 6th string. And then they can move it up and down the neck, and there's going to be one diagram on the PDF that goes along with that. It's going to be very simple and one step at a time. So when you're making your outline, I think it's really important for you to break your steps out individually. The other thing that I'm going to include on the outline handout is a notes section. And in the example that I put in the handout, in the notes section, one of the things that I think is important is for you to anticipate possible areas where people might be challenged, and to speak to those, and to you might want to create a video that is just about the inherent challenges that you would include as people are learning this, because they may need to know that this is going to be difficult at first, but it gets easier with practice. So in your notes section, kind of keep track of things that might be challenging for your student. The other thing that I encourage people to do is to find accessories and tools and different things that you can include in your course that you can monetize besides the course itself. So let's say that I'm teaching a course on guitar chords. Well, I could make a workbook available that's a chord journal where people can keep track of the chords that they learned, and things like that. Or I could put a link to an online source for like a chord stamp where people can stamp chords on their music. Just things like that. If you can find a related piece of equipment that could be sold along with your course, or an accessory that supports your course, I would encourage people to include those in their course information if the platform allows it. There are some platforms that don't allow affiliate links, but others do. So find out if it's allowed, and if it's allowed, go ahead and include it.
I have two additions to what Franklin had said. And the first is that when you are teaching a class, or when you're even taking a class, one of the more important interactions is the student to student interaction, so that they can help each other and assist one another with the lessons that they're learning. So if they do get stuck, they can use each other as resources. If you have the ability to, through your platform, either create some sort of community group or a communications network, or even a Facebook group to stand alone for your students who take all that particular type of class. So you might have multiple classes on guitar. Each one of them gets access to the Facebook group for students who are taking your guitar classes. If you start up a banjo class, those might not be easily transferred over. So you might have to start up a banjo Facebook group or whatever. But keep in mind that students will want to connect with each other. The next thing that I will also say is that in addition to chunking your lessons into some sort of discernible project, understand that your students may pause, go back, and rewatch a particular segment. So it doesn't do any good to just rote repeat the things that you just taught, especially if you're like, okay, this is how you do this particular thing. It helps to do it once one way, and then do it again in a completely different way, or explain it in a brand new way, so that if folks want to go back and rewatch the first way, they can. And if they don't get it, then you're teaching them how to do it again in a second way that might connect better with them. So like Franklin said, anticipate where those problem areas will come up, but figure out a different way to say the thing that you're trying to convey. And the final thing that I will say, I lied, it wasn't two, it was actually three. The final thing that I will say is that when you plan your course, so Franklin's courses are a great example of this. Plan out the shots that you need to take. So for me, most of my videos are talking head. That is, I'm in a square, I'm here talking at you just like we are right now. There's not a whole lot of interruption of stuff or other things. I don't have any demonstrations or things to show you. And so I don't have props. So behind me are all the props. I've created a nice little set for me to exist in. This is my office. I've just happened to luck out and have everything sort of feng shuied already. I didn't just do this for Franklin. so what I will say is, you plan out your shots, and you know that if you're going to do a chord progression, that you need to have your fingers on the fretboard, and you need to show that particular set, and you need to be zoomed in just enough, and you need to have the focus just right. You need to double check it, and maybe you'll have a buddy helping you film. So you need to plan out the shot, so you know that you're going to be cutting out to your fingers for the example, and then cutting back to a talking heads demonstration or a wide shot. If you're doing a demonstration on a tablet, you might have an interspersing of a ScreenFlow recording where you're doing something in particular, and you're highlighting those areas as well. So the progression of the shots as they go along will be really important to you to plan into your notes, so that you can properly post-produce the thing. And then the final thing that I will add on to that is, if you are having a talking head type discussion, I always find it's helpful to have like a little pop figurine or something like that somewhere above the computer like right up here in top of the webcam right behind it, so that you're talking to the individual, because we listen and watch courses as individuals, we watch videos as individuals. And it doesn't help to say all of you all of my students, you students, this, you know, if you're making the broad we, it doesn't make any sense. But when you're listening to it, you want to hear you the student are doing something and you should be doing this, and the teacher is talking to you individually. And I can do that based on just looking at the webcam, making good eye contact with the webcam, which is a really weird thing, but we're all going to have to learn to do it in this crazy new era.
Yeah, no kidding. That's been one of the number one questions that I've had over the last 2 weeks is, how do I do this online? You know, it's like, okay, well, let's go through it. So that's one of the reasons we're making this video, is that people will have a reference that they'll be able to go to. Getting into the production of your lessons, Nick brought up a really good point. If I'm teaching guitar, it's really less important for people to see my face, more important for people to see my hands. So I'm going to want to make sure that my hands are are clearly visible in the picture when I'm demonstrating something. So that's something for you to consider. If you are doing something that is a physical demonstration, you need to make sure that the whole demonstration is fitting in the view of the camera. So it's really important for you to make sure that you can see what the camera sees, and you don't want to leave anything important out of the picture. The other thing that's important, I think, is that the further away that you get from your camera, the more impact that has on your sound. And again, that might be one of the good reasons for having an external microphone, is that the sound goes with you. And if you pull away from the camera to do a demonstration, the sound stays consistent. The thing, again, I'll go back to it, keep your videos short and keep your lessons very economical and one step only at a time. Don't try to bounce the whole thing in one video. That makes it difficult to learn, and it also is just difficult to produce. So keep your videos short. The other thing to consider when you're producing your lessons is that we want it to be easy and conversational. We don't need this to be a real formal event. This isn't like a university lecture so much as it is you're sharing with a friend and you're showing a person something that they're really deeply interested in. So make it personal, make it conversational. There are some people who like to use scripts, and I like to have a kind of an outline when I'm working, but I don't like to script everything because it starts to feel kind of just real tight and not very easy to deliver. And I also, when I'm reading the script, I'm not really paying attention to the camera, which is the person. So the thing that I would say is that you can script things out as much as you want to. If you can keep it a little bit less, formal and more conversational, I think that's going to make a big difference in the way that your lesson is delivered. The only other thing that I would say is that you need to consider the media that you're going to use. There are sometimes when just an audio recording might be enough, and you don't need to have a video. One of the projects that I'm working on is a series of recordings of focus exercises for some of my clients, just helping to relieve anxiety and to get over things like rejection and stuff like that. That can be something that actually is better delivered on an audio format rather than video. Now, Skillshare, I think, is the only one of these platforms that requires video. All of the other ones that I'm going to mention later on will allow audio uploads. Like you can upload podcasts, you can upload, music recordings if you own the copyrights to them. So the thing that I would say is that audio is a really good option for some of these things as well. And you might want to consider, would an audio recording do for what I'm presenting here?
There are two big considerations that I take into when I'm looking at recording a new class. The first is, how do I produce this in a way that will be relevant to my audience and keep them engaged? So it could be I'm addressing a particular type of problem and I need to have interviews with people who have already dealt with that. So I might do something like this, where we're having a Zoom call and going back and forth on an interview, and really keeping a close eye on how we're solving that problem. That's something that's an interesting production mechanism. You can also insert video, your photos, other things like that, motion graphics. You can use Keynote or PowerPoint to create simple motion graphics for those things. you want to have some sort of visual breakup every more or less 30 seconds to a minute or so, some change in scenery. You can also set up two cameras, one that is just meant for an off kilter shot. So you've seen like a front facing camera, and then you might have that side angle, which is more dramatic. It's in black and white or something else like that. I haven't really had a lot of luck teaching that way. It's very distracting for the students, for business classes in particular. They just want to get down to the, the core concept. And so one of the other things you can do is, if you do just want to do an audio only, you could do the transcription live as part of the video and just do motion text as it goes on. And as you're talking, the new words appear as you're going along. It gives you a new medium to work on. And also in Facebook, that would be a really interesting and popular video, because most people, I don't know about right now, but most people before the chaos had started watching Facebook videos in the bathroom on mute. And so they needed to have that transcription rolling. There's some really cool tools for that. Most of them are free. Otter.ai allows you 600 minutes of transcribed video. It's a pretty accurate tool, and you just have to go in and make minor edits afterwards. Incorporate that into your production schedule. Incorporate also gathering the materials, making sure that you have the rights to the materials. They're Creative Commons based images or images that you took or created. And then the other thing that I will say, just as a wrap up of my points, take into consideration your personal verbal and emotive tics and your facial expression, how you're dressed, what's behind you, and so on. If you have a tendency to say or all right, or any of those other verbal tics, or if you have a physical tic that makes you nervous, you start talking with your hands a lot, you bump the mic, you bump the computer, it's very distracting for your students. So I tend to be a little bit more emotive with my personality. And so I have to sort of tone it down a little bit in video. But I also make sure that I'm really aware of, especially when other people, I'm doing an interview, or if I'm talking for a while, I make sure to take a breath, slow myself down, and bring the student back into it. Silence is a really effective tool, and a lot of the public speaking mechanisms that you've learned for effective public speaking, silence, pace, tenor, tone, physical and body mechanics and things like that, facial expressions, posture, all of these things come into play when you're doing a recording. Even if only your fingers are on there, you don't want your fingers to look angry. And also you want maybe to have them, a manicure, like well trimmed nails or other things like that. So take into consideration those aspects as well, as part of your pre-production planning. Once you get into production, you can't fix cracked fingernails, you can't fix other things like that. So it's really difficult to fix errors once they've occurred. If you plan ahead, you can not have to work on that stuff afterwards.
The only other consideration, and it's coming up as a relevant one in our conversation this morning, is it's important for you to have a stable internet signal. I keep getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, and so there may be a lot of times in here where things have to be redone because our voice breaks up or our camera freezes. It's really important for you to have as stable of an internet connection as you can. The only other consideration that I would say is that if you like to have an audience when you're teaching, Zoom allows that, and Zoom, you can record on Zoom while you're teaching to an audience. I've done that for several workshops that I've produced. The next consideration I'd like to talk about is finding the right hosting platform. There are a lot of options here, and we're only going to cover a few of them. The reason that I chose these ones above the rest are that these are the easiest ones that I've found to get started with, and they all have different features, they all have different ways of paying out, and they all have different kind of pricing structures. I'm going to let you though, Nick, I'd like you to talk about Skillshare because you had the firsthand experience with that, and then
Sure.
I can cover the other ones.
So Skillshare is a primarily video-based platform where the teachers can upload lessons that are between 10 to however long they want to make them. I've seen all sorts of different types of courses on Skillshare, but primarily the largest audience is the creative, the artist, the writer, somebody in that skill set that is looking to augment a particular type of skill. So watercolor classes are very popular there. Meditation classes, also very popular. So business classes, being on that platform, do reasonably well because there are quite a few folks in the Etsy market or in the seller to seller to seller, the business to customer based market, that they want to get those skills as well. So consider platform dynamics when you are looking at a different between the different platforms. But in general, my experience with Skillshare has been that their user interface is reasonably clean. They make everything really easy to upload. It's actually how I got started teaching online courses, because I was looking at all of the different options and I just got stalled out. I had analysis paralysis and I didn't want to roll my own and just have it completely bomb. The cool thing about using a network, any network, but the one that I've had with Skillshare, is that they come with a built-in audience. They have the eyeballs already in place, so you can use that to leverage for your marketing. And new teachers generally get some cool considerations like a free year or other things like that, so you can actually go on and see what other teachers are doing. Skillshare's teacher support group is also really powerful. I've learned quite a few things from my fellow teachers that way. So I look for a lot of different things in an online course platform. I look for a support group. I look for how the back end functions, the utilities of being able to upload things or replace lessons as needed. I look for how things like cover images are done. I look for how they handle the homework assignments or other things that I might want to upload, their documentation. So along with your videos, you can also upload a project, and everything on Skillshare has to be project based, which means that there has to be something that they complete at the end of it, which obviously lends itself well to artists. So you can color something, upload it. And one of the first courses that I took on Skillshare was a character creation class. And that got me thinking, well, I could do this, but for marketing. And so that lent itself to, well, here's how you create a press release. Here's how you create a negotiation platform. Here's how you do these things. Here's how you create your documents for these. So that became the project. If you have something like you're teaching yoga, it may not necessarily fit well into that unless you're having your students take pictures of themselves doing the different poses and mastering whatever. If they're able to do that, then that might make sense. But other platforms might make more sense for that. And I would also encourage you not to just look at Skillshare or other platforms in particular as a one-stop shop. You can use multiple platforms and upload to multiple platforms as long as you don't have any specific wording or branding for those things. The payouts in Skillshare tend to happen on a monthly basis. They record all of the minutes that occur in a month, and then the next month they pay you out for all of the minutes that you'd accrued. The rate paid per minute, it varies depending on how many people are on the platform at any given time, how many minutes in total we're watching, and what their free versus their paid student count looks like. And you can actually see the breakdown in their graphs. So everything's very transparent. I tend to like Skillshare quite a bit. And it's been a nice platform for me to engage with. That being said, I also have a platform that I like to use for rolling my own. I also like to use Facebook video as well for certain things. Just depends on what type of content I'm putting out there in the world and who it's for.
The other thing I'd mention about Skillshare is that one of the ways that you can get paid is by referring people to join Skillshare as a member. The next platform that we'll talk about is Udemy. Udemy, like Skillshare, also has a marketplace of over 20 million people. Udemy is a pretty bustling platform. There are a lot of courses on every different topic, and they're varying in length and price. Udemy does have a price ceiling on their courses of $200. One of the things that we didn't mention about Skillshare is that people who are paid members of Skillshare pay like a $10 a month fee to have access to all of the content on Skillshare. And you're paid based on views per or minutes of viewing, and you're paid based on referral commissions. On Udemy, you can be paid by the course. When people order the course, they pay per course. On Udemy, the practice that sometimes is troubling for some folks is that they discount frequently, and the discounts are deep. Sometimes you can get a $200 course for $10, and so the people who are trying to sell a $200 course on Udemy sometimes are disgruntled in that the only time that they see sales is when there's a deep discount. Udemy is very active in marketing, and they're also very active in placing their courses on search. So if you want your course to be searchable, Udemy might be a really great choice for you. But Udemy is, they also are fairly slow to pay out. They pay out 2 months after the sale, and they pay directly into a service either called PayPal or Payoneer. So if you have a PayPal account, they can direct deposit it right into your PayPal account, and Payoneer works the same way. Um, Udemy is an easy one to work with. The commissions on Udemy vary. They range from 50% of the sale to 97% of the sale, depending on who does the marketing. If Udemy does the marketing, you get paid less. If you do the marketing, you get paid significantly more. Like you make 97% of the sale if you do the marketing. So it's really good for you to do as much of the marketing as you can, because you're going to get a better payday out of the deal. There are two that I'm just going to mention side by side. Teachable and Thick are both platforms that I've used. I like both of them, and they both have free trials that are available that you can test them out. They're really, really easy to use. They're very active. They don't have a marketplace like Udemy or Skillshare. So you have to do all of your own marketing. 100% of your marketing on Thinkific and Teachable is on you. But again, the commissions that you make on the price of your course are much, much higher. They're in the 90 to 97% range. They do have paid versions starting at like Teachable starts at $39 and Thinkific starts at $49 a month. I don't recommend you do the paid version right away. I think it's important for you to get a feel for it with the free version and really decide whether this is something that you're going to commit to before you start shelling out that much money per month.
That's true of any platform that has its that doesn't have a marketplace, is that you'll want to do the work of priming your audience, if you have one, a customer base, an email list, and your existing customers. If they are not primed yet to want to take a course from you, then you're going to want to teach them how to do that. And teaching them how to learn from you is going to be a really critical component of that. So having a place with a marketplace allows you to reach into an audience that you wouldn't normally have exposure to, but you're also using a walled garden at that point. Those contacts aren't necessarily yours. You can't also count on them necessarily to become customers of yours. And so the other approach is, if you have a hearty, well curated and responsive email list or a customer base, you can leverage that to create your own marketplace and to teach to those folks and know that they're going to subscribe to those courses in that way.
There's some folks that are recommending a new platform called Kajabi. For people who are just starting out, I don't recommend it at all. It's very expensive, and it's really designed for people who are wanting to do courses more on a full-time basis as their central business. So I would just rule that out. And if you see ads for it, yeah, you can take the free trial, but they're gonna charge you $149 a month right off the bat. The other platform that I want to briefly mention is one that people don't usually associate with online courses, and it's a digital download service called Gumroad. You familiar with Gumroad, Nick?
Yeah, back in the day, we used to use it for like ebook distribution and things like that.
That's exactly right. When it first started out, it was for things like ebooks and, audio and CDs and stuff like that. Well, they've expanded in the last year or so to include video. And what that's made possible is that you can now host your online courses on Gumroad. For my money, Gumroad is the easiest of all of these to interface with, and it's the easiest one for you to create links with. Again, the commissions are 90 to 97%. If you pay their $10 a month premium rate, that allows you to upload videos of any size. And I know a lot of people who are actually filmmakers who are using Gumroad to distribute their film online. So Gumroad is one that I'm really looking at seriously now for folks who are just starting out, as an easy way to get your stuff up online and to sell it. And you're not limited to just online courses. With Gumroad, you can sell both digital and physical products of pretty much any kind through Gumroad as a sales portal. So those are the platforms that we're going to talk about. There is a detailed comparison sheet in the handout that you can download. Real quick, I'd like to talk about setting a price. Nick, do you have any thoughts about setting a price before we go headlong into it?
I tend to like the prices around the $1 to $5 per minute of the course, just because it makes it more accessible, and also depends entirely on what the content is. Keep in mind, you shouldn't be charging consultant rates for something that you are teaching virtually or in a repeatable format. This is really just a recurring income generator for you. And so it could be free if it's something that is universal and can get people in the door, and something that you need your clients to know. Use it as a customer education tool, a customer vetting tool. And then, in the other side of it, you could use it for frequently asked questions or other things like that, that traditionally take up a lot of your time to get on the phone, call somebody, and have that conversation with them. You could have it instead through an online course. So those courses you might want to make free. Something that you would sit down and teach a client about over the course of an hour, or a coffee meeting, or other things like a virtual coffee meeting now, you could have a price on. And $2 to $5 per minute on that is not outside the range of reasonableness. If it's a bigger course that has a lot of materials to it, I'd say price higher. Don't be afraid to charge what you're worth, because you can always discount it later. And you can always offer coupons or freebie links to particular types of clients if you feel that that's warranted.
Yeah, and my advice for pricing your course is to consider that if these people were taking a private lesson with you, that they would be paying top dollar for that time. And so, as a specialist in your craft, you may be able to ask for a higher amount. Remember that perceived value and price are inextricably linked. So, what I would encourage you to think about is that you don't necessarily want to beat everybody in price, because everybody can always go lower. But what you want to do is you want to put in the people's mind that this is something that is valuable enough to pay for, and that the expertise that you're receiving is worth paying a fair market value for. So I have people that have created small micro courses that sell for between $10 and $25, that are like about an hour long. And then I have other people that have created whole schools on a specialty topic, like opening a restaurant, that costs like $1,500 for a significantly larger program.
The other consideration that I would bring to this is, if you have a heavy amount of student engagement or participation, so you're following up on a regular basis, you're answering discussion questions, you're having one-on-one calls with your students, that can ratchet up the price for this as well. Sometimes online courses can enable you to have a whole new model of service that you didn't have before. One is highly leveraged, which is your online courses that you don't have to repeat over and over and over again. And the other is your face-to-face connection, or your, over the Zoom connection, or your one-on-one connection with students that you have taking the course already, that the support that you provide is sort of a consulting, a de facto type of consulting. So keep that in mind when you're pricing, because if you're not accounting for that time for yourself, that is a huge amount of overhead and an externality that you're just going to grow to resent.
I move into marketing real quick. This is the last thing that we really need to talk about today. There is a handout download that is a marketing template. It's very simple. It's for people who don't normally find themselves marketing very much. Your marketing starts with your research, and the research can start with a conversation that you have with people who might be interested in taking a class like the one that you're offering. So the example that I could use is that I could just say, I'm getting ready to make some guitar lessons available on Jazz Guitar. I have 4 different areas that I specialize in, and I'd like to find out what your interest level is in each of these areas. And I'll just take a poll, and it's like, just tell me which one of these is the most appealing to you right now. And there will be like 4 options. I want to learn chords. I want to learn scales. I want to learn how to improvise. I want to learn, you know, I want to learn melody and phrasing, et cetera, et cetera. But each one of those things is an option. Well, what that can tell me is, where is the greatest interest? Well, the greatest interest, if it's in one of those areas, that's probably the course that I should be creating right now. So your marketing starts with research. If you're having a difficult time picking a topic, why don't you put it out to the herd and see what the herd says? If they're telling you that they want one thing, go ahead and produce that one thing and get that out there. The next level is visibility and in interest. We want to be visible in as many corners that are relevant to our topic and to our course as possible. So Facebook groups are a great place to be active and to be, helping people. That's a place where you can tell people about a course. Um, Email lists. If you don't have an email list, this is a really great time for you to start one and build it around this interest. Have a list that's specifically a conversation about the thing that you were teaching. But you need to be visible in as many places as you can be that are relevant to the course that you're teaching. Blogs, you might be a guest blogger or a guest on a podcast that's relevant to your topic. That's a really good place to be visible to a whole new audience and to get people excited about the course that you're teaching. So the main thing with your visibility is that you want to be out there promoting what you've done. But the thing that most people forget to do in their marketing is they forget to invite people to take the next step. So it's really important in your marketing to have an offer and a clear call to action. So at every step of the way, you want to make sure that you're giving people something that's a next level of engagement and that you're asking them to take a step in that direction. So if I'm out there, touting my guitar classes, I can say, I've got a free sample lesson available right now on my website. The link is right here below the video, and you can go click on that link and go take that free guitar lesson. The free guitar lesson is actually one of my lessons in the course. So they've already taken one step in the direction and rolling. All of these different platforms offer coupons and discounts and things like that. You can use those as leverage if you want to get people to enroll while they are already excited about what they've learned. So just keep in mind that you always want to invite people to take the next step with you. And we're always moving toward enrollment. What would you add to that, Nick?
Packaging the course is really important. So making sure that it has a really clear, cohesive cover image, that the pricing is really clear, or the subscription mechanism is really clear. Knowing what your URLs are, if they're referral URLs or if they're just straight up URLs, knowing those things and what your rules are when you go and promote it. If you can provide a referral bonus, if you're doing a host it yourself type platform versus a marketplace platform, you might even be able to pay some of your partners that are helping you to promote this as well. And I would also say, along the line of Franklin's suggestion for the free lesson, using one of your lessons as the demo for the course, either through a Facebook Live video or other things like that. And if you don't have a specific skill that you're hoping to teach, like if you're hoping to get into teaching Taekwondo, or if you're hoping to get into teaching, yoga or meditation or journaling or any of those other things, Zoom is a great platform for this as a de facto, with Facebook Live integration or other things like that, where you could just sit down, have that open conversation, and then the like course, as in the one that we've talked about here, would be more of the one-on-one consultation or the repeatable lessons that they could take home with them and apply those skills themselves when, in between those weekly classes that you teach on Facebook or other things like that. So this is something that is accessible to you no matter what your platform is. Assuming that, and I've even seen on Skillshare, and it cracks me up every time, because I am their demographic, I am the target market, is the gardening classes, because it's just like, it's how do you learn gardening through Skillshare? Well, I one video at a time, my friend, and they have downloads, and this is how this is when you should plant, and if your temperate is this, then you should do these things, and if you're planting these things, then you need to have this type of soil, and here's how you test your soil. It was a great class. I learned a lot. I learned knife skills from Gordon Ramsay on Masterclass. I mean, there's so many different things that are out there right now, and great examples of learning, that if you find a course that you like, look really closely at what they are doing to market it. So they highlight the teacher, usually, if they're either a celebrity or somebody who is reasonably well known in their community. They are highlighting the skill or the problem that the course is answering. They're talking about the questions. They have a really clear bullet point list of all of the learning objectives and the thing that you will be able to do when you're done with the course. And then finally, they have a really clear pricing and how to subscribe or how to check out a free lesson. And usually those two things are side by side. Check out a free demo and then opt in. And so all of that together is a really nice cohesive packaging for an online course. And that would be the only thing that I would say about marketing that we haven't covered yet. Franklin talking about awesome things of creating a mailing list, using your existing audience, however you can, whatever you are connected, teaching them to engage with you in this new way as a teacher. It's going to be a learning curve at first, especially if you've never done it before. As long as you are mildly entertaining and engaging, then when people interact with your course, then you'll have some success with this, and hopefully an ongoing recurring revenue stream that is resulting from this. Because that's really, if you're thinking about why you would create a course, some of the key reasons are you want to create an ongoing revenue stream that doesn't require your one-on-one interaction with it on a regular basis. You want to create some sort of leverage so that you can answer frequently asked questions without having to be one-on-one, or you're trying to preserve knowledge or leverage something that you have seen and take it to a larger audience. And so, those are the three big reasons in my mind why I want to create an online course. And it's always been front of mind, like, why am I teaching this right now? Should I be teaching this right now? And is it going to solve a problem for somebody, or is it just something for my ego? And if it's something for my ego, I hit the delete button immediately.
I want my ego to be satisfied when the money comes in. So getting to the end of our conversation, Nick, this has been a great chat.
I want to thank the Larimer SBDC and the Loveland Business Development Center and Peggy from the Downtown Fort Collins Creative District. And I want to encourage you that if you are still struggling with questions or want to get into more in-depth specific knowledge about your business, Franklin is a consultant with the SBDC and the Loveland Business Development Center as well. Please do reach out to them right now. This is a wonderful time. They're doing free online consulting classes, or they're doing free online consulting. They'll do a phone call with you. They'll get you into a Zoom meeting. They'll do whatever it takes to help you with your business right now.
I only have two other recommendations to end with. One of them is there are a number of free courses online about creating a free course, or about creating an online course. Some of the best that I found are on Udemy. Go out and just take one. Just learn how to do this step by step. There are plenty of resources out there that are absolutely free to learn how to make an online course. The second thing is that I'm going to recommend Teach and Go Rich by Danny Iney. I-N-Y is the spelling of his last name. It's all about teaching online and creating a revenue stream for your business through teaching. And the last I heard, I think he was selling it for free on his website. So Teach and Go Rich by Danny Iney. I-N-Y is the spelling of his last name.
Thanks, Franklin, for your time today. I so appreciate it. And if you, like I said, we have any questions, then reach out to larimersbdc.org or lovelandbusiness.com.